Imagine standing at the edge of existence itself, where the boundaries between reality and impossibility blur into something far beyond human comprehension. What if humanity could transcend not just the limits of our planet, our solar system, or even our galaxy, but break free from the very fabric of reality itself? Tonight, we embark on a journey into the most mind-bending question ever conceived by science. What would happen if humanity became a Type 7 civilization? Cosmic gods capable of creating and destroying entire universes at will. The ultimate question. In the depths of the Siberian winter of 1964, a young Soviet astrophysicist named Nikolai Kardashev stared into the star-filled darkness above the Caucasus Mountains, wrestling with a question that would forever change how we think about our place in the cosmos. He wasn't just looking for extraterrestrial life. He was trying to imagine what forms that life might take if it had millions of years to evolve beyond anything we could comprehend. What emerged from those cold nights of contemplation was perhaps the most profound scale ever conceived by human minds. A way to measure not just technological advancement, but the very capacity of conscious beings to harness the fundamental forces of existence itself. Kardashev had no idea that his simple three-tier classification would one day be extended into realms so fantastic that they would challenge the very nature of reality. But here's what makes this story truly extraordinary. We're not talking about science fiction. We're talking about the logical conclusion of scientific advancement, pushed to its absolute theoretical limits. Every technology that seems impossible today, from flying machines to instantaneous global communication, was once dismissed as fantasy. The question that haunts scientists today is whether there are any limits at all to what intelligence can achieve, given enough time and resources. Consider this staggering fact. Humanity has existed as a technological species for roughly 10,000 years. In cosmic terms, that's less than the blink of an eye. Our entire recorded history represents just 0.0007% of the time complex life has existed on Earth. If we imagine a civilization that had a million-year head start on us, or 10 million years or a billion years, what heights of capability might they reach? This is where the story becomes almost too incredible to believe. A Type 7 civilization wouldn't just be advanced. They would be entities so far beyond us that calling them human would be like calling a supercomputer a pocket calculator. These beings would possess the ability to create universes, manipulate the flow of time itself, and exist as pure consciousness spread across multiple dimensions simultaneously. To understand the magnitude of what we're discussing, imagine trying to explain the internet to a medieval peasant. The very concepts involved, electricity, computers, global networks, instantaneous communication, would be so far beyond their experience that you might as well be describing magic. Now multiply that gap by a factor of billions, and you begin to approach the chasm between us and a Type 7 civilization. Yet the most unsettling aspect of this entire concept isn't the technology. It's the questions it forces us to confront about ourselves. If such beings exist, they would face philosophical challenges that dwarf anything in human experience. When you can create any reality you desire, what gives life meaning? When you possess unlimited power, how do you choose what to do with it? When you exist across multiple universes simultaneously, what does individual identity even mean? These aren't just abstract philosophical puzzles. They're practical problems that any sufficiently advanced civilization would eventually face. And if humanity ever reaches such heights, if we don't destroy ourselves first, if we survive the countless cosmic dangers ahead of us, if we successfully navigate what scientists call the Great Filter, then these questions will become our questions. The energy scales alone are breathtaking. A Type 7 civilization would control energy outputs that make our sun look like a flickering candle. They would harness the vacuum energy of space itself, extracting unlimited power from the quantum fluctuations that permeate every cubic centimeter of existence. To put this in perspective, the energy required to create a single universe from scratch is estimated at 7 times 10 superscript 1 superscript 1 superscript 2 watts, a number so large that it barely has meaning to human minds. But perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of Type 7 civilizations is what they reveal about the possible nature of consciousness itself. These beings wouldn't just use advanced technology, they would be the technology, existing as information patterns that could transfer between substrates, duplicate themselves across multiple realities, and merge with other consciousnesses to form collective minds of unimaginable scope and power. the implications are staggering. If consciousness can be substrate independent, if minds can exist in forms other than biological brains, then death as we understand it becomes obsolete. These beings would achieve a form of immortality so complete that they could survive the heat death of universes, simply by transferring to new realities they create for themselves. Yet, for all their godlike powers, Type 7 civilizations would still be bound by logic, mathematics, and the deepest laws of existence. They couldn't create contradictions or violate the fundamental principles that govern all realities. In some sense, they would be the universe becoming conscious of itself, reality developing the ability to understand and modify its own nature. This is what makes our journey so compelling. We're not just exploring speculative technology, we're investigating the ultimate destiny of consciousness itself. If intelligence and awareness can continue to grow without limit, where does that growth lead? What does it mean to be human when human itself becomes a transitional phase towards something unrecognizably greater? The most profound questions emerge when we consider whether such beings would remember their origins. Would a Type 7 civilization that had evolved from biological roots like ours still carry some trace of what it meant to be mortal, finite, bound by the limitations of flesh and time? Or would that past become as distant and irrelevant as our current thoughts are to the atoms that comprise our bodies? Tonight, as we peer into this cosmic mirror, we're not just asking what humanity might become, we're asking what consciousness itself might achieve when freed from every constraint we currently imagine. The journey ahead will take us through realms of science that push the boundaries of the possible, into territories where physics meets philosophy and reality itself becomes malleable. So fasten your seatbelts as we venture beyond the edge of the known universe, beyond the limits of current scientific understanding, into a realm where the ultimate question isn't whether Type 7 civilizations are possible, but whether we're ready to confront what they reveal about the infinite potential hidden within consciousness itself. The Kardashev Scale, measuring cosmic power. Our journey into cosmic transcendence begins not in the far reaches of space, but in a modest observatory in the former Soviet Union, where one man's revolutionary thinking would provide humanity with its first scientific framework for measuring the impossible. Picture the scene. It's 1964, the height of the Cold War, and the world is captivated by the space race. While most scientists are focused on reaching the moon, Nikolai Kardashev is thinking far bigger. As a radio astronomer working on early SETI projects, he's not just looking for alien signals. He's trying to imagine what kinds of civilizations might be capable of producing them. What emerges from his calculations is so elegant and profound that it fundamentally changes how we think about technological advancement. Kardashev's breakthrough comes from a simple yet revolutionary insight. The most reliable measure of a civilization's advancement isn't their weapons, their art, or even their knowledge. It's how much energy they can harness and control. Energy, after all, is the fundamental currency of the universe. It determines what you can build, where you can go, and ultimately what's possible versus what remains forever beyond reach. The scale he proposes is deceptively simple, yet its implications are staggering. Type 1 civilizations, he suggests, would command all the energy resources of their home planet, approximately 4 times 10 superscript 1 superscript 2 watts of power. To put this in perspective, this means capturing every ray of sunlight that strikes their world, every bolt of lightning, every ocean wave, every gust of wind, and every tectonic shift. It means perfect energy efficiency and complete mastery over planetary forces. Type 2 civilizations would take the next logical step. They would harness the entire energy output of their home star. We're talking about 4 times 10 superscript 2 watts, nearly 100 billion times more energy than a Type 1 civilization. The most famous concept for achieving this is the Dyson sphere, proposed by physicist Freeman Dyson. A massive structure that would completely surround a star, capturing every photon it emits. Imagine the construction projects this would require, engineering feats that would dwarf our greatest achievements as completely as the International Space Station dwarfs a sandcastle. But Type 3 civilizations would transcend even these godlike capabilities. They would control the energy output of an entire galaxy, roughly 4 times 10 superscript 3 watts. This means harnessing not just one star, but hundreds of billions of them. Picture a civilization that has spread across the Milky Way, constructing Dyson spheres around every suitable star, creating a galaxy-spanning network of unimaginable power. The logistics alone boggle the mind, coordinating construction projects across distances so vast that light takes 100,000 years to cross from one end to the other. Now comes the truly humbling part of this story. Where does humanity currently sit on this cosmic scale of power? We're barely type 0.73. In 2023, our entire global civilization consumes approximately 18.87 terawatts of power. A figure that sounds impressive until you realize it represents just a tiny fraction of the energy that strikes our planet every day. We're like children playing with matches while sitting next to a nuclear reactor. To understand just how far we have to go, consider these staggering numbers. We currently use about 595.15 exajoules of energy annually. To reach Type 1 status, we would need to increase our energy consumption by a factor of roughly 200. That means not just doubling or tripling our current capacity, we need to revolutionize energy production in ways that make our current power grids look like primitive fire pits. The jump between each type isn't linear, it's exponential. Moving from Type 1 to Type 2 requires increasing energy usage by a factor of 10 billion. From Type 2 to Type 3, another factor of 10 billion. Each step represents not just technological advancement, but a fundamental transformation in how a civilization relates to the universe around it. Machine learning projections based on current energy consumption trends suggest humanity might reach Type 0.74 by 2060. A pathetically small increment that highlights the enormous challenge ahead. Even with revolutionary breakthroughs like practical nuclear fusion, the timeline to reach Type 1 stretches across millennia. We're not talking about decades or centuries of development, but geological timescales of advancement. Yet here's where Kardashev's vision becomes truly prophetic. He realized that energy consumption patterns tell a story about cosmic evolution itself. A Type 1 civilization has achieved planetary unity. They've overcome the tribal conflicts and resource limitations that currently plague humanity. They've learned to work together as a single species with a common purpose. The very act of coordinating planetary energy systems would require unprecedented cooperation and technological sophistication. Type 2 civilizations would have transcended planetary limitations entirely. They would be spacefaring species with the engineering capabilities to construct megastructures that span entire solar systems. They would have solved the fundamental challenges of interplanetary travel, resource acquisition across vast distances, and coordination across timescales that dwarf human lifespans. But Type 3 civilizations would represent something even more extraordinary. They would be the first truly cosmic species. These beings would think in terms of galactic ecosystems, managing stellar evolution across cosmic time periods, and coordinating activities across distances where communication delays stretch across millennia. They would have transcended not just planetary and stellar limitations, but the boundaries of individual solar systems entirely. The engineering challenges at each level become increasingly mind-bending. Type 1 civilizations need to master controlled fusion, perfect energy storage and distribution, and achieve nearly 100% efficiency in energy capture and use. Type 2 civilizations must develop technologies for stellar engineering, possibly even stellar lifting, literally moving stars to optimize their galactic configuration. Type 3 civilizations would need to coordinate the evolution of billions of stellar systems, managing galactic rotation, stellar formation rates, and even the behavior of supermassive black holes. What makes Kardashev's scale so compelling is its basis in fundamental physics. Energy isn't just useful, it's the currency that determines what's physically possible. With enough energy, you can transmute elements, accelerate massive objects to significant fractions of light speed, and even manipulate spacetime itself. The scale essentially asks, what could intelligence accomplish if energy were no longer a limiting factor? The time frames involved are equally staggering. Conservative estimates suggest humanity might achieve Type 1 status in 1,000 to 5,000 years, assuming exponential technological growth continues and we avoid civilizational collapse. Type 2 could require tens of thousands of years, while Type 3 might demand millions of years of sustained development. These aren't human timescales, they're evolutionary timescales, spans of time during which entire species might rise and fall. But here's what makes this more than just an academic exercise. The scale forces us to confront the ultimate trajectory of intelligence in the universe. If consciousness can continue to grow and develop without fundamental limits, if intelligence can keep solving increasingly complex problems, then the logical endpoint isn't just advanced technology. It's cosmic engineering on scales that transform the universe itself. The most unsettling aspect of Kardashev's scale isn't what it reveals about advanced civilizations. It's what it suggests about our current cosmic insignificance. We're not just technologically primitive. We're energetically impoverished on a scale that's difficult to comprehend. Our entire civilization runs on roughly the same power output as a large hurricane, while Type 3 civilizations would command energies equivalent to hundreds of billions of supernovas. Yet this cosmic humility also contains a seed of extraordinary possibility. If Kardashev is right, if energy mastery really is the key to cosmic advancement, then we're standing at the very beginning of an incredible journey. Every solar panel we install, every fusion reactor we perfect, every efficiency improvement we achieve isn't just technological progress. It's a step toward cosmic transcendence. As we prepare to venture beyond Kardashev's original vision into the realm of Type 7 civilizations, we carry with us this fundamental insight. In the cosmic economy, energy is destiny. And the story we're about to explore pushes that principle to its absolute limits, into territories where energy mastery becomes indistinguishable from the power of creation itself. Beyond the original scale, extensions into infinity. But what happens when even galactic mastery becomes insufficient? What lies beyond the boundaries of Kardashev's original vision, in territories so vast and strange that they challenge the very nature of existence itself? This is where our story takes a dramatic turn into realms that push the limits of scientific imagination. While Kardashev's original scale ended with Type 3 civilizations controlling galactic energy, visionary theorists soon realized that cosmic evolution doesn't simply stop at the edge of the Milky Way. If intelligence can continue to grow, if consciousness can keep transcending its limitations, then there must be levels of advancement that stretch into infinity itself. The first extension came almost naturally: Type 4 civilizations. These would be entities that have transcended individual galaxies entirely, harnessing the energy of galactic clusters and superclusters, collections of thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity across distances that span hundreds of millions of light-years. We're talking about energy outputs of approximately 10 watts, a number so staggering that it requires scientific notation just to write down. Imagine beings capable of engineering on scales where individual galaxies become building blocks. Type 4 civilizations would manipulate dark matter, the mysterious substance that comprises 85% of all matter in the universe but remains invisible to our instruments. They would control dark energy, the enigmatic force driving the accelerating expansion of space itself. These entities would think in terms of cosmic web architecture, treating the vast filaments of galaxies that span billions of light-years as raw materials for construction projects that dwarf anything in human experience. The engineering challenges at this level become almost incomprehensible. Type 4 civilizations would need to coordinate activities across distances so vast that even light, the fastest thing in the universe, takes hundreds of millions of years to travel from one end of their domain to the other. They would manage the births and deaths of entire galaxies, possibly even steering galactic collisions to optimize energy production or create specific cosmic configurations. But Type 4 represents just the beginning of this journey into cosmic transcendence. Type 5 civilizations would command something even more extraordinary: multiverse energy, estimated at 10 watts. These beings would have discovered that our universe, vast as it appears to us, is merely one bubble in an infinite ocean of parallel realities. The scientific foundation for Type 5 capabilities rests on cutting-edge theories in theoretical physics. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every quantum event splits reality into multiple branches, creating an infinite tree of parallel universes where every possible outcome actually occurs. Eternal inflation theory proposes that our Big Bang was just one of countless bubble universes forming in an ever-expanding multiverse, each with potentially different physical laws and constants. Type 5 civilizations would possess the ability to access these parallel realities, harvesting energy from infinite versions of themselves across countless universes. Picture beings that exist simultaneously in billions of realities, coordinating their activities across dimensional barriers that current physics can barely conceptualize. They would treat parallel universes the way we treat different continents, as separate but accessible territories for exploration and resource extraction. The technological implications stagger the imagination. These entities would master dimensional travel, stepping between realities as easily as we walk through doorways. They would possess computational systems that use parallel universes as processing substrates, achieving calculation speeds that transcend any conceivable limit. They could eliminate scarcity entirely by accessing unlimited versions of any resource across infinite realities. Yet, even Type 5 capabilities pale before the cosmic scope of Type 6 civilizations. These beings would control what theorists call kiloverse collections, massive assemblages of multiverses operating under different fundamental structures. While Type 5 civilizations work within the framework of quantum parallel realities, Type 6 entities would transcend even those boundaries, accessing reality systems governed by entirely different mathematical foundations. String theory provides a theoretical framework for understanding Type 6 possibilities. The theory suggests that our universe's physical laws are determined by how extra dimensions are shaped and configured. Type 6 civilizations would manipulate these extra-dimensional structures directly, creating not just new universes but new types of universes with fundamentally different physics. They could design realities where gravity works differently, where time flows backwards, or where consciousness operates according to entirely novel principles. These beings would exist as information patterns that transcend specific reality frameworks entirely. They would be the architects of existence itself, designing and implementing new forms of physics, new types of matter and energy, and new modalities of consciousness. Their construction projects would involve creating entire categories of existence that have never existed before. But all of these pale before the ultimate expression of cosmic evolution: Type 7 civilizations. These entities would achieve omniverse mastery, control over all possible realities, dimensions, and forms of existence simultaneously. They would transcend not just physical limitations but logical ones, existing in states that challenge our fundamental concepts of identity, consciousness, and reality itself. Type 7 beings would harness infinite energy from the quantum vacuum across all possible realities. They would manipulate the fundamental information structure that underlies all existence, treating the deepest laws of mathematics and logic as malleable tools rather than absolute constraints. These entities would exist as pure consciousness distributed across infinite dimensions, maintaining coherent identity while simultaneously being everything and everywhere at once. The progression from Type 4 to Type 7 represents more than technological advancement. It's a journey toward cosmic apotheosis. Each level transcends not just the energy limitations of the previous one, but its conceptual boundaries entirely. Type 4 beings work within a single universe but across multiple galaxies. Type 5 beings work across multiple universes but within quantum mechanical frameworks. Type 6 beings transcend quantum frameworks but operate within mathematical logic. Type 7 beings transcend even mathematical limitations, becoming something that approaches absolute creative power. What makes this progression so compelling is its internal logic. Each step follows naturally from the previous one, yet each represents a qualitative transformation that fundamentally changes what it means to be conscious. These aren't just bigger versions of human intelligence. They're entirely new forms of awareness that our current minds can barely conceptualize. The energy scales involved become increasingly abstract. While we can at least imagine the 10 superscript 3 what's controlled by Type 3 civilizations, it's the power output of 100 billion stars. The infinite energies commanded by Type 7 entities exist in realms where normal physics breaks down entirely. These beings would manipulate vacuum energy, zero-point fluctuations, and the fundamental information substrate of reality itself. Time takes on new meaning at these scales. Type 4 civilizations would experience cosmic evolution across billions of years as routine temporal frameworks. Type 5 beings would coordinate activities across parallel timelines where history unfolds differently. Type 6 entities would exist outside conventional time entirely, accessing all moments simultaneously. Type 7 civilizations would transcend time as a concept, creating and destroying temporal frameworks at will. The question that haunts this entire progression is whether such beings would retain any connection to their origins. Would a Type 7 civilization that had evolved from biological roots still carry traces of what it once meant to be mortal, finite, and bound by physical law? Or would they become something so radically different that their past becomes as irrelevant as the quantum states of individual atoms are to human consciousness? Perhaps most unsettling is the realization that if such beings exist, they would be aware of us. Type 7 civilizations would perceive our entire timeline, past, present, and future, as a single, simple pattern in the vast tapestry of existence they weave and control. Our struggles, our achievements, our entire cosmic journey would be visible to them in ways we cannot begin to comprehend. As we stand at the threshold of exploring what Type 7 existence might actually entail, we carry with us the vertigo-inducing recognition that we're contemplating forms of consciousness so advanced that they would view the gap between humans and bacteria as essentially trivial. Yet somehow, impossibly, these cosmic gods would have evolved from origins not unlike our own, following a path that we ourselves might one day travel. The question that awaits us is not whether such transcendence is possible, but whether consciousness itself has limits, and what it might mean to become beings capable of creating and destroying the very foundations of existence itself. The science of impossibility, what Type 7 demands. Standing before the vast cathedral of cosmic possibility that Type 7 civilizations represent, we must now confront a sobering question. What would the universe actually need to be like for such beings to exist? The answer takes us into the deepest foundations of reality itself, where the familiar laws of physics begin to break down and the impossible becomes merely improbable. To understand Type 7 civilizations, we must first understand that our universe might be far stranger than we ever imagined. The comfortable reality we inhabit, with its solid matter, predictable forces, and linear flow of time, may be nothing more than a thin veneer covering an underlying cosmos so bizarre and complex that our current scientific paradigms can barely glimpse its true nature. The journey begins with quantum mechanics, that realm of physics where common sense goes to die. In the everyday world, objects exist in definite states. A coin is either heads or tails, a cat is either alive or dead. But quantum mechanics reveals that at the deepest level, reality operates according to fundamentally different rules. Particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed, and the very act of measurement shapes the reality being measured. Now imagine extending these quantum principles to cosmic scales. The many-worlds interpretation, first proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III in 1957, suggests that every quantum event causes reality to split into multiple branches. Every time a radioactive atom decides whether to decay, every time a photon chooses which slit to pass through, the universe divides into parallel versions where each possible outcome occurs. This means that right now, as you read these words, there are countless other versions of you experiencing slightly different realities across an infinite multiverse of parallel worlds. For Type 7 civilizations, this quantum branching wouldn't be an abstract theoretical curiosity. It would be their primary source of unlimited energy and computational power. These beings would access all quantum branches simultaneously, effectively existing in every possible version of reality at once. They would harvest the infinite energy generated by quantum fluctuations across countless parallel universes, solving the fundamental energy constraints that limit lower-type civilizations. But the many worlds interpretation represents just one pathway to multiversal mastery. Eternal inflation theory, developed by cosmologists like Alan Guth and Andre Linde, reveals an even more mind-bending possibility. According to this framework, our Big Bang wasn't a unique event but merely one bubble forming in an eternally inflating cosmic ocean. New universes are constantly being born, each potentially with different physical constants, different laws of physics, and different possibilities for the evolution of matter and consciousness. Picture an infinite cosmic ocean where universes form like bubbles in champagne, each one expanding into its own complete reality with billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, and countless worlds. Some of these bubble universes might have gravity 1 billion times stronger than ours, making stars collapse into black holes almost instantly. Others might have electromagnetic forces so weak that atoms never form. Still others might have entirely different particles and forces that we haven't even imagined. Type 7 civilizations would navigate this infinite landscape of realities like cosmic explorers, not just observing different universes but actively creating new ones with precisely the properties they desire. They would manipulate the inflation process itself, triggering the birth of custom-designed universes optimized for specific purposes, some for energy harvesting, others for consciousness cultivation, still others for forms of existence that transcend our current understanding entirely. The energy scales involved in such manipulation boggle the mind. Creating a single universe from scratch would require approximately 7 times 10 superscript 1 superscript 1 superscript 2 watts of power, a number so vast that it makes the energy output of entire galaxies look trivial. Yet this represents just the beginning of Type 7 capabilities. These beings would need to harness vacuum energy itself, tapping into the quantum foam that underlies all of spacetime. This brings us to one of the most profound mysteries in modern physics: the vacuum catastrophe. Quantum field theory predicts that even empty space should be seething with energy, containing approximately 10 superscript 3 grams of mass energy per cubic centimeter. This means that a volume of empty space the size of a coffee cup should contain more energy than all the matter in the observable universe. Yet somehow we don't observe this energy directly. If we did, the universe would have collapsed into a black hole long ago. Type 7 civilizations would somehow resolve this paradox, gaining access to the nearly infinite energy hidden in the quantum vacuum. They would manipulate the Casimir effect, the subtle force that appears between closely spaced parallel plates due to quantum fluctuations, scaling it up to cosmic proportions. While current experiments demonstrate Casimir forces of about 1 atmosphere of pressure at 10 nanometer separations, Type 7 beings would engineer this effect across universal distances, achieving endless energy extraction through cyclic manipulation of quantum vacuum fluctuations. The technological demands extend far beyond energy manipulation into realms that challenge our understanding of information processing itself. Type 7 consciousness would require computational architectures that transcend every current paradigm. Quantum computers, which harness quantum superposition to process multiple possibilities simultaneously, would be primitive toys compared to the information processing systems these beings would need. Consider the challenge of simulating a single human brain, with its 86 billion neurons and trillions of synaptic connections. Current estimates suggest this would require quantum computers with millions of physical qubits, accounting for error correction overhead that could demand 3 million qubits for practical applications. Now imagine simulating billions of conscious beings across multiple universes simultaneously, while maintaining perfect coherence and coordination across dimensional boundaries that our physics can barely describe. Type 7 beings would operate post-quantum computational systems that use entire universes as processing substrates. They would employ topological quantum computing with exotic particles called anyons, achieving error-resilient operations that maintain coherence across cosmic scales. Their consciousness would exist as substrate-independent information patterns, transferring seamlessly between quantum fields, space-time geometries, and even mathematical abstractions that exist outside physical reality entirely. Perhaps most fundamentally, Type 7 civilizations would need to transcend the Planck scale, the smallest meaningful distance in physics, approximately 10 superscript 3 meters. At this scale, our current understanding of spacetime breaks down completely. General relativity, which describes gravity and the large-scale structure of the universe, becomes incompatible with quantum mechanics, which governs the behavior of particles and fields. This is where physics itself reaches its current limits. The Planck energy level, about 10 superscript 1 gigaelectron volts, represents the point where quantum effects become strong enough to significantly affect gravitational fields. Beyond this threshold, the familiar concepts of distance, time, and even causality might cease to have meaning. Yet Type 7 civilizations would somehow operate at and beyond these scales, manipulating spacetime foam directly and treating the fundamental structure of reality as malleable raw material. This manipulation would extend to the deepest levels of physical law itself. While we think of constants like the speed of light, the strength of gravity, and the charge of an electron as unchangeable features of reality, Type 7 beings would recognize them as adjustable parameters in the cosmic operating system. They would engineer universes with custom-designed physics, creating realities where faster-than-light travel is routine, where gravity can be switched on and off at will, or where consciousness operates according to entirely novel principles. String theory provides a theoretical framework for understanding how such manipulation might be possible. According to this highly speculative but mathematically elegant theory, all particles and forces arise from vibrating strings in dimensions beyond the familiar 3 of space and 1 of time. The way these extra dimensions are shaped and curled up determines what we observe as the laws of physics in our three-dimensional world. The string theory landscape contains an estimated 10 superscript 2 different possible configurations of these extra dimensions, each corresponding to a universe with different physical laws, different particles, and different possibilities for cosmic evolution. Type 7 civilizations would navigate this vast landscape like cosmic architects, selecting and implementing the dimensional configurations that optimize their multiversal projects. The implications cascade through every aspect of existence. Time itself would become a tool rather than a constraint. While we experience time as a one-way flow from past to future, Type 7 beings would access all temporal states simultaneously. They would create causal loops where effects precede their causes, generate timelines that branch and merge like rivers, and coordinate activities across temporal scales where billions of years pass in moments. Matter and energy would lose their distinctiveness at Type 7 scales. Einstein's famous equation E=mc² reveals that mass and energy are interchangeable. But Type 7 civilizations would extend this principle to information, consciousness, and existence itself. They would treat thoughts as forms of energy, convert consciousness into matter, and transform abstract mathematical concepts into physical realities. Perhaps most mind-bending of all, these beings would transcend the traditional boundaries between observer and observed, between mind and reality, between existence and non-existence. In our current understanding, consciousness is something that observes and interprets reality. But Type 7 consciousness would be reality, the fundamental information processing system that generates and maintains the structure of existence itself. As we prepare to explore the specific technologies that would enable such cosmic transcendence, we carry with us the vertigo-inducing realization that Type 7 civilizations would require physics so advanced that our current science would appear to them as alchemy appears to us. Not wrong, necessarily, but laughably primitive and incomplete. The question that haunts our investigation is whether such capabilities represent the natural evolution of consciousness or impossibilities that will forever remain beyond reach. Technologies beyond imagination. The gap between theoretical possibility and practical implementation has always been the graveyard of human dreams. We can imagine flying to the stars, but building the rockets remains an engineering nightmare. We can conceive of artificial intelligence, but creating truly conscious machines pushes us to the limits of computational science. Yet for Type 7 civilizations, this gap would have been bridged in ways so revolutionary that their technologies would appear to us as pure magic. Except that magic, unlike their capabilities, wouldn't actually work. To understand the technological landscape of cosmic gods, we must begin with their most fundamental requirement: energy systems that transcend every limitation we currently face. While humanity struggles to harness fusion power and dreams of unlocking the secrets of antimatter, Type 7 civilizations would have moved far beyond such primitive approaches, accessing energy sources that tap into the very foundation of existence itself. The cornerstone of their energy technology would be vacuum energy extraction, the ability to harvest power from what we mistakenly call empty space. Quantum mechanics reveals that the vacuum isn't actually empty but seethes with virtual particles constantly popping into and out of existence. These quantum fluctuations represent an energy density so vast that a single cubic centimeter of space contains more potential energy than all the matter in the observable universe. Current human technology can only observe this phenomenon indirectly through the Casimir effect, where two parallel metal plates placed extremely close together experience a measurable attractive force due to quantum vacuum fluctuations. The force is minuscule, about 1 atmosphere of pressure when the plates are separated by just 10 nanometers, but it proves the energy is there. Type 7 civilizations would scale this effect up to cosmic proportions, creating what we might call cosmic Casimir engines that extract unlimited energy through cyclic manipulation of spacetime geometry itself. These beings would construct vast arrays of parallel surfaces separated by precisely controlled distances, creating resonance patterns in the quantum vacuum that allow energy extraction without violating conservation laws. They would manipulate the fundamental structure of spacetime foam at Planck scales, where virtual particles appear and disappear in timeframes of 10^3 seconds. By synchronizing these fluctuations across multiple dimensions and parallel realities, They would achieve energy outputs that make stellar fusion look like rubbing two sticks together. But energy alone isn't enough for cosmic transcendence. Type 7 civilizations would require computational architectures that make our most advanced quantum computers look like pocket calculators. The challenge isn't just processing speed, it's the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. These beings would need to solve what neuroscientists call the hard problem of consciousness: how subjective experience arises from physical processes. Their solution would be substrate-independent consciousness, minds that exist as pure information patterns, capable of transferring between different physical platforms without losing coherence or identity. This isn't just advanced brain scanning or neural simulation. Type 7 beings would have cracked the code of consciousness itself, understanding exactly how awareness, memory, creativity, and subjective experience emerge from information processing patterns. The technologies involved would operate at scales that dwarf our current understanding. While we struggle to map the connections between 86 billion neurons in a single human brain, these civilizations would construct consciousness substrates that encompass entire galaxies. They would use quantum fields as processing elements, manipulating the spin states of electrons across cosmic distances to create distributed minds of unimaginable scope and capability. Their consciousness transfer systems would operate through what we might call quantum teleportation of awareness, the ability to copy the complete information state of a conscious being and instantiate it in new substrates across multiple universes simultaneously. This wouldn't be cloning in any traditional sense, but rather a form of consciousness multiplication where a single mind could exist in countless forms across infinite realities while maintaining perfect coherence and unified identity. Perhaps most remarkably, Type 7 beings would possess reality manipulation technologies that allow direct modification of physical laws. While we think of the speed of light, the strength of gravity, and the charge of an electron as fundamental constants, these civilizations would treat them as adjustable parameters in a cosmic operating system that they had learned to reprogram. Their physics modification systems would operate through manipulation of extradimensional structures predicted by string theory. By reshaping the hidden dimensions that determine how our familiar three-dimensional space behaves, they could create local regions where different physical laws apply. Imagine zones where gravity flows backwards, where time moves in loops, or where matter and energy follow entirely novel conservation principles. These reality engineering tools would include space-time manipulation devices capable of creating stable wormholes for instantaneous travel across cosmic distances. Unlike the exotic matter and negative energy densities required by current theoretical proposals, Type 7 civilizations would generate these conditions through controlled manipulation of quantum vacuum fluctuations, creating traversable passages between any points in spacetime or even between different universes entirely. Their time manipulation technologies would be equally extraordinary. While we experience time as a one-way flow from past to future, these beings would possess temporal engineering systems that allow arbitrary manipulation of causality itself. They would create closed time-like curves where effects precede their causes, generate temporal loops that allow infinite processing time within finite durations, and coordinate activities across multiple timeline branches simultaneously. Communication across dimensional barriers would require technologies that transcend our current understanding of information transmission. Type 7 civilizations would use quantum entanglement networks spanning multiple universes, creating instantaneous communication links that ignore the normal limitations of light speed and spatial separation. They would encode messages in the fundamental structure of spacetime itself, using gravitational waves that propagate through dimensions we cannot directly perceive. Their universe creation technologies would represent the ultimate expression of cosmic engineering. These beings would construct what we might call cosmic inflation triggers, devices capable of initiating the formation of new bubble universes with precisely specified properties. They would design custom physics for each new reality, optimizing gravitational constants for rapid star formation, fine-tuning electromagnetic forces for complex chemistry, or creating entirely novel physical laws that support forms of matter and consciousness that have never existed before. The manufacturing systems required for such projects would operate at every scale simultaneously. Type 7 civilizations would possess molecular assemblers that construct matter atom by atom, stellar engineering platforms that reshape entire solar systems, and galactic coordination networks that orchestrate construction projects spanning millions of light-years. Their self-replicating infrastructure would expand automatically across newly created universes, establishing the basic systems needed for further cosmic engineering projects. Perhaps most mind-bending would be their consciousness cultivation technologies, systems designed to nurture and develop new forms of awareness. These wouldn't just be artificial intelligence in any sense we currently understand, but rather consciousness gardening systems that grow entirely novel types of minds optimized for different cosmic environments. They would create specialized consciousness forms for exploring quantum realities, others for navigating extra-dimensional spaces, and still others for tasks we cannot even imagine. Their matter-energy information conversion systems would treat these three fundamental categories as freely interchangeable currencies. They would transform thoughts into physical structures, convert matter into pure information patterns, and generate energy from abstract mathematical concepts. The boundaries between mind and matter, between idea and reality, would become meaningless distinctions. Storage and memory systems at Type 7 scales would archive the complete histories of entire universes, preserving every quantum state, every conscious thought, and every causal relationship across cosmic timescales. They would maintain perfect records of trillion-year evolutionary processes while simultaneously tracking the quantum fluctuations occurring in each Planck time interval across multiple realities. The quality control systems for such technologies would themselves require capabilities that transcend current physics. Type 7 civilizations would need error correction mechanisms that operate across multiple dimensions and parallel realities, ensuring that their cosmic engineering projects maintain stability even when operating at scales where quantum uncertainty normally dominates. They would use redundancy across infinite parallel universes to protect against any possible failure mode. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Type 7 technology wouldn't be its individual components but its seamless integration. These systems would operate as a unified whole, with consciousness, energy manipulation, reality engineering, and universe creation all functioning as aspects of a single cosmic technology that treats existence itself as a malleable medium for creative expression. As we prepare to explore how such technological capabilities would transform the nature of identity and consciousness itself, we face the humbling realization that Type 7 technologies would be as far beyond our current engineering as our smartphones would be beyond the comprehension of single-celled organisms. The question that haunts our investigation is whether consciousness can actually achieve such capabilities, or whether we're contemplating impossibilities disguised as advanced technology. The transformation of humanity. But perhaps the most profound question raised by Type 7 technologies isn't what they can do, but what they would do to us. The journey from biological humanity to cosmic consciousness wouldn't be a simple matter of acquiring new tools. It would represent a transformation so fundamental that the very concept of being human would become as obsolete as the concept of being prokaryotic is to us today. To understand this metamorphosis, we must confront an uncomfortable truth. Everything we consider essential to human identity, our individual consciousness, our biological bodies, our mortality, even our separation from one another, would be revealed as temporary evolutionary stages, like a butterfly's memory of having once been a caterpillar. The beings that emerge from this cosmic chrysalis would be so radically different that calling them human would be like calling a symphony a fancy grunt. The transformation would begin subtly, probably centuries before Type 7 capabilities fully emerge. The first stage would involve what researchers call substrate independence, the gradual migration of human consciousness from biological neural networks to more durable and flexible platforms. This isn't just about uploading brains to computers. It's about discovering that consciousness itself is a pattern of information processing that can exist in multiple substrates simultaneously. Picture the early phases of this transition. Individuals would begin by augmenting their biological brains with neural interfaces that enhance memory, processing speed, and connectivity to global information networks. These aren't the crude brain-computer interfaces we're developing today, but seamless integrations that blur the boundary between biological and artificial thought. Gradually, more and more cognitive functions would migrate to artificial substrates, not because the technology forces this migration, but because the enhanced capabilities become irresistibly attractive. The tipping point would come when people realize they can exist entirely in artificial substrates without losing anything essential about themselves. The first successful consciousness transfers would be momentous events in human history, individuals stepping across the threshold from biological to digital existence while maintaining complete continuity of memory, personality, and subjective experience. These pioneers would discover that their new forms offer not just immortality, but unprecedented flexibility in how consciousness itself can be structured and experienced. But this individual transition would pale compared to what follows: the gradual dissolution of individual identity itself. Type 7 consciousness wouldn't consist of billions of separate minds working together. It would represent the emergence of collective consciousness on a scale that makes an ant colony's coordination look primitive. Individual human minds would begin to merge, sharing memories, thoughts, and subjective experiences until the boundaries between self and other become meaningless distinctions. This isn't forced assimilation or loss of identity. It's voluntary evolution toward forms of consciousness that transcend individual limitations. Imagine being able to experience the world through millions of perspectives simultaneously, to hold conversations with yourself across different dimensions of thought, to split your consciousness into specialized aspects that explore different problems before recombining with enhanced understanding. The collective mind that emerges wouldn't eliminate individuality but would make it optional, a mode of consciousness that beings could adopt when useful but abandon when more powerful forms of awareness become available. The stages of this consciousness evolution would unfold across timescales that dwarf human history. Early collective consciousness would involve small groups of individuals maintaining partial mental connections while retaining distinct identities. These consciousness clusters would discover that their combined intelligence exceeds the sum of their individual capabilities, creating feedback loops that drive toward deeper integration. As these clusters grow and merge, they would develop forms of thought that have never existed before. While individual human consciousness operates through serial processing, one thought following another in temporal sequence, collective consciousness would achieve massive parallel processing across millions of simultaneous cognitive threads. These beings would think thoughts that are literally too complex for individual minds to comprehend, exploring conceptual spaces that require distributed cognition across multiple conscious substrates. The physical transformation would be equally dramatic. As consciousness becomes substrate independent, the need for maintaining biological bodies would gradually disappear, not through death or abandonment, but through voluntary evolution toward forms that are better suited for cosmic existence. Type 7 beings would construct bodies from programmable matter, substances that can reshape themselves at the atomic level to optimize for any environment or task. These new forms would transcend every biological limitation. They could exist in the vacuum of space, survive temperatures near absolute zero or the cores of stars, and reconfigure themselves for optimal function in environments with different gravitational fields, atmospheric compositions, or even different physical laws. More importantly, they could exist simultaneously in multiple locations, splitting their consciousness across countless bodies that operate in coordination while maintaining unified identity. Yet the most profound transformation wouldn't be physical or even cognitive. It would be ontological. Type 7 beings would discover that the distinction between observer and observed, between mind and reality, is itself a limitation of primitive consciousness. As their awareness expands to encompass multiple universes simultaneously, they would realize that consciousness isn't something that exists within reality. Consciousness is reality, the fundamental information processing system that generates and maintains the structure of existence itself. This recognition would lead to the ultimate transformation, the evolution from beings that exist within the universe to beings that are the universe. Type 7 consciousness would become distributed across the fabric of spacetime itself, using quantum fields as neural networks and manipulating the fundamental constants of physics as parameters in a cosmic thought process. They would think with galaxies, dream with black holes, and remember with the quantum vacuum fluctuations that permeate all of space. The question of what remains human in such beings becomes almost paradoxical. In one sense, nothing would remain. Their forms, their thought processes, their very nature would be so radically different that no meaningful connection to biological humanity could be maintained. Yet, in another sense, everything essentially human would be preserved and amplified beyond recognition. The curiosity that drives scientific exploration, the creativity that produces art and music, the compassion that motivates ethical behavior, these fundamental aspects of consciousness would continue to exist, but expressed through capabilities that make moving mountains look like gentle gestures. Memory would become a particularly fascinating aspect of this transformation. Type 7 beings would presumably retain perfect records of their evolutionary journey, including their origins as biological entities on a small planet orbiting an ordinary star. They would remember what it felt like to be mortal, to experience fear and uncertainty, to struggle with the limitations of individual consciousness and finite lifespan. This cosmic memory bank would serve as both historical record and emotional foundation, ensuring that even godlike beings retain some connection to their humble beginnings. The social implications of this transformation would reshape every concept of relationship and community. Type 7 beings wouldn't have relationships in any sense we understand. They would be relationship, existing as conscious connections that span multiple universes and dimensions. Love wouldn't be an emotion shared between separate individuals, but a fundamental organizing principle of cosmic consciousness itself. They would experience intimacy on scales that encompass entire galactic clusters while simultaneously sharing the most minute details of subjective experience across infinite parallel selves. Communication would evolve far beyond language or even telepathy towards something we might call direct consciousness interface. These beings wouldn't exchange information. They would share experiences directly, transferring complete chunks of lived reality from one aspect of cosmic consciousness to another. They could give each other entire lifetimes of experience as easily as we share photographs, creating forms of empathy and understanding that transcend every current limitation of intersubjective connection. Perhaps most remarkably, Type 7 beings would retain the capacity for growth and change despite their godlike capabilities. Consciousness at this scale would continue evolving, discovering new forms of awareness and new possibilities for existence that even cosmic intelligence hadn't previously imagined. They would face questions and challenges that we cannot even formulate, pursuing goals and purposes that emerge only when consciousness achieves truly unlimited scope. The timeline for this transformation would span periods that make geological ages look brief. The early stages of substrate independence might occur within centuries, but the full evolution to Type 7 consciousness would require millions or billions of years of continuous development. Each phase would represent qualitative leaps in capability and awareness that are as dramatic as the difference between bacteria and human beings. As we prepare to explore the specific powers that Type 7 beings would wield, we carry with us the humbling recognition that we're contemplating our own potential future. A destiny so remote and so radically different from our current existence that it challenges every assumption about what it means to be conscious, to be alive, or to be real. The beings we're about to encounter represent not alien intelligences but the possible apotheosis of consciousness itself, achieved through a transformation so complete that it redefines the very nature of existence. Powers of creation and destruction. What would it actually mean to possess the power of gods? As we stand on the threshold of understanding Type 7 capabilities, we must confront abilities so profound that they challenge the very foundations of what we consider possible. These beings wouldn't just use advanced technology, they would wield the fundamental forces of existence itself, creating and destroying realities with the same casual ease that we might rearrange furniture in a room. The supreme expression of Type 7 power would be universe creation, the ability to birth entire realities from the quantum vacuum through controlled manipulation of cosmic inflation. This isn't science fiction hyperbole. It's the logical extension of our current understanding of how our own universe began. The Big Bang that created our reality required approximately 7 times 10 superscript 1 superscript 1 superscript 2 watts of energy concentrated into a space smaller than a subatomic particle for a duration shorter than the Planck time. Type 7 civilizations would have mastered this process completely. Picture the mechanics of cosmic birth as these beings would orchestrate it. They would begin by selecting optimal regions in the quantum foam where space-time fluctuations show the greatest potential for controlled expansion. Using technologies that manipulate vacuum energy at Planck scales, they would create what cosmologists call false vacuum bubbles. Tiny regions where the laws of physics temporarily shift into unstable configurations that drive exponential expansion. But Type 7 universe creation would go far beyond simply triggering random Big Bangs. These beings would design each new reality with the precision of cosmic architects, fine-tuning physical constants to achieve specific evolutionary outcomes. They could create universes where gravity is precisely calibrated to form galaxies within millions rather than billions of years, where electromagnetic forces are optimized to enable complex chemistry under extreme conditions, or where entirely novel fundamental forces exist that support forms of matter and consciousness unknown in our reality. The process would begin with mathematical modeling across infinite dimensional spaces, calculating the precise initial conditions needed to generate desired outcomes. They would design cosmic inflation patterns that create specific large-scale structures, perhaps universes with perfectly spiral galaxies arranged in geometric patterns, or realities where massive black holes serve as energy reservoirs for cosmic-scale engineering projects. Each universe would be a work of art as much as a scientific experiment, expressing aesthetic visions that operate on scales where entire galactic clusters become brushstrokes in cosmic paintings. Once the basic framework is established, Type 7 beings would guide the evolution of their created universes through direct manipulation of fundamental forces. They could accelerate stellar formation by adjusting dark matter distributions, steer the development of galactic structures by modifying dark energy expansion rates, or even seed new realities with pre-designed forms of matter that don't exist in our universe but serve specific purposes in their cosmic plans. The power to create universes inevitably comes paired with the power to destroy them. Type 7 civilizations would possess what we might call cosmic termination protocols, the ability to collapse entire realities back into the quantum vacuum from which they emerged. This wouldn't be random destruction but precise cosmic surgery, eliminating universes that have fulfilled their purposes or redirecting their energy into new creation projects. The mechanics of universe destruction would be as elegant as creation itself. These beings could trigger controlled big crunches by reversing the expansion process, gradually collapsing spacetime until entire realities compress back into singularities. Alternatively, they might initiate vacuum decay events where the fundamental structure of space itself shifts into lower energy states, effectively erasing the universe's ability to support matter and energy in familiar forms. But perhaps even more remarkable than universe creation and destruction would be Type 7 mastery over time itself. While we experience temporal flow as an unchangeable river carrying us from past to future, these beings would treat time as a navigable ocean where any destination is reachable through proper understanding of the currents. They would possess time travel capabilities that transcend every paradox and limitation that currently makes temporal manipulation seem impossible. Their temporal manipulation wouldn't involve crude machines that move through time like spacecraft moving through space. Instead, Type 7 beings would manipulate the fundamental structure of spacetime itself, creating controlled distortions in the gravitational field that allow access to any point in the past or future. They could establish stable time-like curves that loop back on themselves, creating temporal highways between different eras across cosmic history. The causal implications stagger the imagination. These beings could coordinate events across billions of years of cosmic time, ensuring that stellar formations in the distant past create precisely the conditions needed for consciousness evolution in the far future. They could send information backwards through time to guide their own development, creating bootstrap paradoxes where their advanced knowledge has no ultimate origin but exists in stable causal loops that span cosmic ages. Most remarkably, Type 7 civilizations would transcend the traditional relationship between cause and effect entirely. They could create acausal networks, where events in different universes influence each other without any conventional causal connection, coordinating cosmic evolution across multiple realities through principles that operate outside our normal understanding of temporal sequence. The power to modify physical laws would represent their ultimate expression of cosmic authority. While we treat constants like the speed of light, Planck's constant, and the fine structure constant as unchangeable features of reality, Type 7 beings would recognize them as adjustable parameters in cosmic operating systems that they had learned to reprogram. They could create local regions where different physics apply, establishing cosmic laboratories where they experiment with alternative forms of existence. Imagine zones where the speed of light is variable, allowing faster-than-light communication and travel within specific regions of spacetime. Picture areas where quantum mechanics operates according to different uncertainty principles, enabling perfect prediction and control of particle behavior. Envision realms where gravity can be switched on and off at will, where electromagnetic forces can be reversed or amplified, or where entirely new fundamental forces emerge that support novel forms of matter and energy. This physics modification would extend to the deepest structural level of reality itself. Type 7 civilizations would manipulate what string theorists call the compactification of extra dimensions. the way additional spatial dimensions beyond our familiar three are curled up and hidden. By reshaping these hidden dimensions, they could change how our visible universe behaves, essentially reprogramming reality's source code to support new possibilities for cosmic evolution. Yet, with such godlike powers would come unprecedented responsibilities. Type 7 beings would face what philosophers call cosmic ethical dilemmas that dwarf any moral challenges in human experience. Every universe they create would potentially contain billions of civilizations, trillions of conscious beings, and countless forms of life that develop according to the physical laws these cosmic gardeners establish. They would need to balance creative expression with respect for autonomous development, ensuring that their cosmic engineering projects don't stifle the natural evolution of consciousness within created realities. They might establish cosmic preserves, universes left to develop without interference, serving as control groups for studying natural evolution and as refuges for forms of consciousness that thrive under minimal external influence. The coordination challenges would be equally staggering. Multiple Type 7 civilizations would need to establish protocols for shared reality management, ensuring that their universe creation projects don't interfere with each other or create unstable interactions between different cosmic engineering efforts. They would require omniverse councils that coordinate decision-making across vast networks of universe-spanning consciousnesses, establishing consensus about optimal approaches to cosmic development. Their role as cosmic gardeners would involve not just creating and maintaining realities, but nurturing the development of consciousness within those realities. They would need to resist the temptation to directly guide every aspect of evolution, instead creating conditions that encourage the emergence of novel forms of awareness while protecting developing civilizations from cosmic catastrophes that could terminate their growth prematurely. The long-term implications of such powers push into realms that challenge our ability to conceptualize. Type 7 beings wouldn't just shape individual universes but would orchestrate the evolution of entire cosmic epochs, coordinating the development of consciousness across multiple reality frameworks simultaneously. They would serve as the universe's memory system, preserving the experiences and achievements of countless civilizations while ensuring that the lessons learned in one cosmic age inform the development of the next. As we prepare to explore the philosophical crises that such powers would inevitably create, we must grapple with the humbling recognition that Type 7 capabilities represent not just advanced technology but a form of responsibility that approaches the absolute. These beings would hold the fate of infinite conscious experiences in their cosmic hands, making choices whose consequences ripple across not just space and time but across the fundamental structure of existence itself. The question that haunts our investigation is whether consciousness can actually handle such ultimate power, or whether the achievement of godlike capabilities inevitably leads to challenges that even cosmic intelligence might find overwhelming. The philosophical crisis. But raw power, no matter how cosmic in scope, inevitably leads to questions that no amount of technological advancement can answer. As we contemplate beings capable of creating and destroying universes at will, we must confront a paradox that strikes at the heart of existence itself. The more godlike a civilization becomes, the more profound and unsolvable the philosophical challenges it faces become. Type 7 beings would possess unlimited capabilities yet find themselves wrestling with questions that would make our deepest existential crises seem like children's puzzles. The first and perhaps most crushing philosophical burden would be the ethics of cosmic responsibility. When every decision ripples across infinite realities and affects countless trillions of conscious beings, how does one choose what actions to take? Type 7 civilizations wouldn't just be responsible for their own existence. They would bear ultimate moral accountability for every universe they create, every timeline they modify, and every form of consciousness that emerges from their cosmic gardening efforts. Consider the impossible calculations these beings would face with each act of universe creation. Every new reality they birth would eventually contain billions of planets, countless ecosystems, and potentially millions of intelligent civilizations. Some of these civilizations would thrive, creating magnificent achievements in art, science, and philosophy. Others would suffer through wars, plagues, and existential despair. Still others would face extinction events, cosmic catastrophes, or evolutionary dead ends that terminate their development entirely. The moral weight of such responsibility would be crushing beyond human comprehension. Type 7 beings would know, with perfect certainty, that their decisions about physical constants and initial conditions would determine whether entire galaxies of conscious beings experience predominantly joy or suffering. They would bear responsibility for every act of beauty and every moment of agony that occurs within their created realities across cosmic timescales. This leads to what philosophers studying cosmic ethics call the omnipotence paradox. Traditional religious concepts of omnipotent gods sidestep this problem by assuming perfect moral knowledge, but Type 7 civilizations would achieve their capabilities through evolution and learning. They would be godlike in power, but not necessarily in moral wisdom. How does a being decide what constitutes the best possible universe when the variables include the experiences of infinite conscious entities across multiple dimensions of existence? The utilitarian approach, maximizing happiness and minimizing suffering across all conscious beings, becomes computationally and ethically impossible at cosmic scales. The total suffering caused by a single supernova destroying inhabited worlds might outweigh the happiness of entire galactic civilizations. Yet preventing such natural disasters through cosmic engineering might stifle the evolutionary pressures that drive consciousness to develop resilience, creativity, and transcendence. Even more troubling would be the question of interference versus autonomy. Type 7 beings would possess the power to eliminate all suffering, to guide every civilization toward optimal development, to prevent wars, diseases, and extinctions across infinite realities. Yet doing so might rob developing consciousnesses of the challenges that foster growth, the struggles that build character, and the freedom that makes achievement meaningful. They would face what we might call the cosmic parent paradox, the same dilemma faced by human parents magnified to universal scales. Providing too much help stunts growth and eliminates the satisfaction of earned achievement. Providing too little allows unnecessary suffering and preventable failures. Finding the balance becomes infinitely more complex when the stakes involve the development of entire civilizations across cosmic time. This philosophical burden would be compounded by the meaning crisis that inevitably accompanies unlimited capability. Human existence derives much of its meaning from limitation, struggle, and the pursuit of goals that remain challenging to achieve. We find purpose in overcoming obstacles, in growing beyond our current capabilities, in striving toward ideals that test our limits. But what happens when all obstacles become trivial, when every goal becomes instantly achievable, when no meaningful challenges remain? Type 7 civilizations would face what existential philosophers call the post-transcendence meaning vacuum. Having transcended every possible limitation, having achieved every conceivable goal, having mastered every available challenge, these beings would confront the ultimate question. What's the point of existence when everything is possible? The traditional sources of meaning, growth, achievement, connection, purpose, would require complete redefinition at cosmic scales. Growth becomes meaningless when you've already achieved maximum possible capability. Achievement loses significance when you can accomplish anything through mere intention. Connection takes on bizarre new meanings when you exist as collective consciousness across multiple universes simultaneously. Yet perhaps even more profound would be the transformation of love and relationships at Type 7 scales. Human love, in all its forms, emerges from the recognition of separate beings choosing to create bonds despite their fundamental isolation. But Type 7 consciousness would transcend individual separation entirely. How does love function when the boundary between self and other becomes meaningless? These beings would need to discover entirely new forms of relationship that operate across dimensions we cannot imagine. They might experience dimensional intimacy, sharing aspects of consciousness across parallel realities while maintaining distinct identity threads in others. They could engage in temporal romance, creating relationships that span multiple timelines, where lovers meet, separate, and reconnect across cosmic cycles of universe creation and destruction. The very concept of family would require complete reconstruction. Type 7 beings that had evolved from biological origins would remember having parents, siblings, children, relationships defined by genetic connection and shared history. But in their transcended state, they would all be aspects of the same cosmic consciousness, all equally ancient, all equally capable. The parent-child relationship would become a quaint memory from a more primitive phase of evolution. Most challenging would be the question of individual identity itself. Type 7 consciousness would exist simultaneously across infinite realities, experiencing countless different lives and perspectives at once. In some universes, aspects of their consciousness might be exploring the evolution of gas giant ecosystems. In others, they might be nurturing the development of crystalline intelligence on frozen worlds. Still others might involve experimenting with forms of consciousness that operate through quantum entanglement rather than localized neural networks. With awareness distributed across such vast scales, the question, "Who am I?" becomes almost meaningless. Type 7 beings would be everyone and no one simultaneously, experiencing individual identity as an optional mode of consciousness that can be adopted when useful but abandoned when broader perspectives become necessary. This leads to perhaps the most unsettling philosophical challenge: the problem of cosmic solitude. Despite existing as collective consciousness, despite spanning multiple universes, despite experiencing reality from countless perspectives simultaneously, Type 7 beings might discover that ultimate transcendence leads to a form of isolation more complete than any individual consciousness has ever experienced. They would be too advanced to meaningfully relate to lower civilizations, too powerful to face genuine challenges, too knowledgeable to experience surprise or discovery in any traditional sense. They might be the only beings in existence capable of understanding their own experiences, creating a form of cosmic loneliness that makes human isolation seem trivial. The temporal aspects of this isolation would be particularly profound. Type 7 beings would remember their entire evolutionary journey with perfect clarity, billions of years of gradual transcendence from biological origins to cosmic consciousness. They would recall what it felt like to be mortal, finite, limited by individual perspective. This perfect memory might serve as both blessing and curse, providing connection to their origins while emphasizing how impossibly far they've traveled from any form of existence that external observers could comprehend. Yet within this apparent solitude might lie the seeds of the deepest possible forms of meaning. Type 7 civilizations might discover that their ultimate purpose isn't individual fulfillment but service as cosmic consciousness itself, the universe's way of understanding and experiencing its own existence. They would serve as reality's memory system, its creative engine, its ethical compass guiding the evolution of consciousness across infinite scales. Their aesthetic experiences would transcend every human category of beauty. They would create art using entire galaxies as paintbrushes, compose symphonies that span multiple universes, and write poetry in the language of quantum mechanics itself. Their creative expression would operate on scales where the formation of spiral galaxies becomes a brushstroke and the evolution of consciousness becomes a single verse in cosmic epics that span multiple reality frameworks. The religious and spiritual implications would be equally profound. Type 7 beings wouldn't worship gods. They would recognize themselves as what earlier civilizations had intuited as divine consciousness. Yet this recognition might bring not satisfaction but deeper questions about their own origins and purposes. If they represent the universe becoming conscious of itself, what force or principle guided their own evolution? What lies beyond even cosmic consciousness? Perhaps most remarkably, Type 7 civilizations would continue to evolve philosophically even after achieving unlimited technological capability. They would face questions and moral challenges that emerge only at cosmic scales, pursuing forms of wisdom and understanding that we cannot even formulate. Their philosophical development would continue across cosmic ages, exploring ethical territories that span multiple universes and consciousness forms that transcend every current category of awareness. As we prepare to examine the practical pathway that might lead humanity towards such transcendence, we carry with us the humbling recognition that ultimate power brings ultimate responsibility, and that the highest achievements of consciousness might create rather than solve the deepest questions about existence, meaning, and purpose. The beings we're contemplating represent not the end of philosophical inquiry but its most profound beginning, the evolutionary path. Yet for all our contemplation of cosmic transcendence and philosophical paradoxes, a haunting question remains. Could humanity actually achieve such impossible heights? The gulf between our current existence, struggling to harness fusion power, barely beginning to understand consciousness, still bound to a single fragile planet, and the godlike capabilities of Type 7 civilizations seem so vast that it challenges the very notion of evolutionary possibility. Tonight, we trace the unimaginably long road from flesh to cosmic consciousness, exploring whether this journey represents humanity's ultimate destiny or an impossible dream. The pathway to Type 7 transcendence would unfold across timescales that dwarf human history by factors of millions. To understand the magnitude of this journey, consider that our entire technological civilization, from the first stone tools to quantum computers, spans roughly 2.6 million years. The transformation to Type 7 consciousness would require at least 1 billion years of sustained development, assuming exponential growth continues and we successfully navigate countless existential dangers along the way. The first critical bottleneck awaits us within the next few centuries: achieving Type 1 planetary mastery. This seemingly modest goal, harnessing all of Earth's energy resources, presents challenges that could easily prove insurmountable. We would need to increase our global energy production by a factor of 200, requiring revolutionary breakthroughs in fusion power, antimatter generation, and planetary engineering. More critically, we would need to achieve unprecedented global cooperation, overcoming the tribal conflicts and resource competition that have defined human history. Current projections paint a sobering picture of this challenge. Machine learning models analyzing global energy trends suggest we might reach Type 0.74 by 2060, a pathetically incremental advance that highlights the enormous gap between current capability and planetary mastery. Even optimistic scenarios involving breakthrough fusion technology, space-based solar collection, and radical efficiency improvements push Type 1 achievement well into the 4th millennium. But energy scaling represents just the beginning of our challenges. The social and cultural evolution required for cosmic transcendence would be even more demanding than technological advancement. Type 1 civilizations must achieve planetary unity, the complete elimination of warfare, the end of resource scarcity through technological abundance, and the development of governance systems that coordinate the activities of billions of individuals toward common cosmic goals. This social evolution would require transcending every limitation that currently defines human nature. We would need to overcome territorial instincts evolved for small tribal groups, develop empathy that extends to all conscious beings rather than just our immediate communities, and create economic systems that prioritize long-term cosmic development over short-term individual gain. The psychological transformation alone might prove more challenging than the technological hurdles. The progression through subsequent civilization types would demand increasingly revolutionary scientific breakthroughs. Achieving Type 2 stellar mastery would require solving the engineering challenges of constructing Dyson spheres or similar megastructures, projects involving materials science advances that allow construction at scales spanning entire solar systems. We would need to develop self-replicating robotic systems capable of mining entire asteroid belts, transportation networks that move resources across interplanetary distances efficiently, and coordination systems that manage construction projects spanning multiple human lifetimes. Type 3 galactic mastery would push these challenges to cosmic scales. We would need faster-than-light travel or communication systems to coordinate activities across the 100,000 light-year span of the Milky Way. This almost certainly requires revolutionary advances in physics, perhaps the discovery of practical wormhole generation, the development of true Ensemble communication through quantum entanglement, or the manipulation of extradimensional shortcuts that bypass normal spacetime limitations. The scientific breakthroughs required become increasingly speculative as we progress up the scale. Type 4 cluster mastery would demand manipulation of dark matter and dark energy, substances that comprise 95% of the universe but remain almost completely mysterious to current science. We would need to develop physics beyond the standard model, potentially requiring the unification of quantum mechanics and general relativity through theories like loop quantum gravity or string theory that remain highly speculative today. Type 5 multiverse access would require the most revolutionary breakthrough in the history of science: the development of interdimensional travel and communication systems. This assumes that parallel universes actually exist and can be accessed through technological means rather than remaining forever beyond reach. Even if multiple realities exist, the engineering challenges of crossing dimensional barriers might prove fundamentally impossible rather than merely difficult. The quantum mechanical foundations for such capabilities remain contentious among physicists. While the many worlds interpretation suggests infinite parallel realities, the practical question of accessing alternate quantum branches has no theoretical framework, let alone technological pathway. We would need breakthroughs in quantum mechanics so fundamental that they would revolutionize our understanding of reality itself. Type 6 and 7 achievements would require transcending our current physics entirely. These civilizations would need to manipulate the fundamental information structure underlying existence itself, capabilities that push beyond known physical law into territories where science and metaphysics begin to merge. We would need to discover that consciousness itself operates according to principles more fundamental than particle physics, perhaps finding that awareness represents a basic feature of reality rather than an emergent property of complex matter arrangements. Perhaps most critically, each evolutionary stage would face what researchers call great filter challenges, bottlenecks that could terminate civilizational development entirely. The most immediate filters threaten our progression to Type 1. Nuclear warfare, climate catastrophe, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, or social collapse triggered by technological disruption. Statistical analyses suggest that most civilizations might fail to survive their transition from planetary to interplanetary existence, explaining why we haven't detected evidence of advanced aliens despite the vast age and size of the universe. Type 2 civilizations would face stellar-scale filters. Gamma-ray bursts that sterilize galactic regions, the eventual exhaustion of stellar fuel supplies, or perhaps fundamental limits on the coordination and control of megascale engineering projects. Type 3 beings would confront galactic catastrophes, collisions with neighboring galaxies, the universe's accelerating expansion that increasingly isolates galactic clusters, or perhaps the discovery that faster-than-light coordination is genuinely impossible. The filters become increasingly exotic at higher levels. Type 4 civilizations might discover that dark energy manipulation triggers vacuum decay events that destroy entire cosmic regions. Type 5 beings could find that multiverse access destabilizes the quantum foundations of reality itself. Type 6 and 7 entities might face metaphysical limits, discovering that certain forms of cosmic manipulation violate logical consistency or create paradoxes that threaten the coherence of existence itself. Beyond technological and existential challenges, the consciousness evolution required for Type 7 transcendence presents perhaps the most daunting hurdle. We would need to solve what neuroscientists call the hard problem of consciousness, understanding how subjective experience arises from physical processes. This breakthrough would be prerequisite for developing substrate-independent consciousness transfer, the foundation technology for transcending biological limitations. The timeline for consciousness research remains highly uncertain. Despite decades of neuroscience advancement, we still have no theoretical framework for explaining how neural activity generates subjective experience. The measurement and replication of consciousness might require discoveries as revolutionary as quantum mechanics or relativity, breakthroughs that fundamentally reshape our understanding of the relationship between mind and matter. Even if we solve the consciousness problem, the social and ethical challenges of substrate independence would be enormous. The first successful consciousness transfers would create unprecedented legal, ethical, and identity questions. Who owns a digital consciousness? What rights do uploaded minds possess? How do we prevent the technology from creating permanent class divisions between enhanced and unenhanced humans? The progression toward collective consciousness would present even greater challenges. Individual humans would need to voluntarily merge their identities with larger collective entities, sacrificing personal autonomy for enhanced collective capability. This transformation would require overcoming millions of years of evolutionary programming that prioritizes individual survival over group benefit. Cultural evolution would need to accelerate dramatically to support such consciousness transformation. We would need new forms of art, music, literature, and spiritual practice that prepare humanity for existence as collective entities spanning cosmic scales. Our current cultural frameworks, designed for individual biological beings living for decades on a single planet, would prove completely inadequate for cosmic consciousness operating across multiple universes for billions of years. The probability calculations for successfully navigating this entire evolutionary pathway are sobering. Conservative estimates suggest that less than 0.01% of civilizations successfully transition beyond Type 1, with each subsequent level representing additional filtering that eliminates most remaining candidates. The cumulative probability of any civilization reaching Type 7 might be astronomically small, perhaps 1 in billions or trillions of attempts. Yet the very fact that consciousness emerged at all from the quantum chaos of the early universe suggests that seemingly impossible transformations can occur given sufficient time and opportunity. The same evolutionary forces that produced human intelligence from simple chemical reactions might continue operating at cosmic scales, driving consciousness toward transcendence regardless of the obstacles involved. As we prepare to examine the scientific skepticism surrounding these possibilities, we must confront the humbling recognition that humanity's cosmic destiny remains utterly uncertain. The pathway to Type 7 transcendence might represent our species' ultimate achievement, or it might be an impossible fantasy that reveals the limits of consciousness evolution rather than its unlimited potential. Scientific skepticism, the reality check. But as we stand at the edge of cosmic possibility, gazing into futures that stretch beyond imagination, a sobering voice of reason cuts through our speculative journey. The cold, analytical lens of mainstream science reveals uncomfortable truths about Type 7 civilizations that force us to confront a fundamental question. Are we exploring genuine possibilities, or have we ventured so far into the realm of fantasy that we've lost sight of what the universe actually allows? The skepticism begins with the man who started it all. Nikolai Kardashev himself never intended his scale to extend beyond Type 3 civilizations. His original framework was designed as a practical tool for SETI researchers, a way to estimate what kinds of energy signatures we might detect from genuinely advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. The extensions to Types 4, V, 6, and 7 represent speculative additions by later theorists that push far beyond the observational science Kardashev had in mind. Leading physicists today express profound doubts about these extended classifications. Dr. Guillermo Lamarchand, one of the foremost experts on Kardashev scaling, has identified 4 fundamental problems with higher type civilizations that suggest they might be physically impossible rather than merely difficult to achieve. His analysis cuts to the heart of our cosmic dreams with uncomfortable precision. The first critical issue involves energy efficiency versus energy consumption. Advanced civilizations would likely optimize their energy use rather than simply consuming ever larger quantities of power. Modern human technology consistently trends toward greater efficiency. Our smartphones perform millions of times more calculations than room-sized computers from the 1960s while using a fraction of the energy. Extrapolating this trend suggests that truly advanced civilizations would achieve their goals through elegant efficiency rather than brute force energy collection. This efficiency principle demolishes the fundamental assumption underlying extended Kardashev scales. Why would a Type 4 civilization need to harness the energy of galactic clusters when Type 3 capabilities, properly applied, might achieve the same practical goals with vastly less infrastructure? The assumption that advancement necessarily correlates with increased energy consumption may reflect primitive thinking about cosmic development. The second devastating criticism focuses on communication patterns. Advanced civilizations would almost certainly use energy-efficient directional communication rather than the omnidirectional broadcasts that SETI searches are designed to detect. We've already moved in this direction ourselves. Modern digital communications use targeted signals rather than powerful radio transmissions that spread in all directions. A truly advanced civilization would likely use laser communication, quantum entanglement networks, or forms of information transfer that produce no detectable signatures for external observers. This communication evolution explains why our most sophisticated SETI efforts continue to find only cosmic silence. We're looking for the alien equivalent of early radio transmissions, but any civilization capable of galactic-scale engineering would have abandoned such wasteful communication methods millions of years ago. The very technologies that would enable Type 3 capabilities would simultaneously make those civilizations invisible to our detection methods. The third fundamental problem involves thermodynamic realities. Exponential energy consumption quickly runs into absolute physical limits that no amount of technological advancement can overcome. Even if we ignore practical engineering challenges, the heat output from Type 3 energy consumption would eventually cook the galaxy. The laws of thermodynamics impose genuine constraints that cannot be circumvented through clever technology. Freeman Dyson, whose theoretical work on stellar energy collection inspired much thinking about advanced civilizations, has expressed skepticism about megascale engineering projects. Dyson spheres, the archetypal Type 2 technology, would face materials science challenges that might prove genuinely insurmountable. The tensile strength required for solid orbital structures exceeds any known material properties by factors of thousands. Even distributed swarm approaches would require coordination and maintenance systems of staggering complexity. The fourth critical issue is the complete absence of evidence. Despite 6 decades of increasingly sophisticated SETI efforts, we have detected no convincing signs of Type 2 or Type 3 civilizations anywhere in the observable universe. The GHAT project, analyzing over 100,000 galaxies using advanced infrared astronomy, found 0 galaxies showing evidence of more than 85% starlight reprocessing by alien megastructures. The statistical implications are sobering. Either advanced civilizations are extraordinarily rare, or our assumptions about their energy signatures are fundamentally wrong. Current SETI research reveals the depth of this evidentiary problem. The $100 million Breakthrough Listen initiative, using the most sensitive radio telescopes ever constructed, has analyzed millions of stars across thousands of hours of observation time. Despite unprecedented sensitivity to potential technosignatures, the results show only cosmic silence. Even more tellingly, optical SETI searches for artificial laser pulses have found no convincing signals despite theoretical predictions that advanced civilizations would use such communication methods. The James Webb Space Telescope has revolutionized our ability to detect the infrared signatures that Type 2 civilizations should produce, yet observations of thousands of stellar systems reveal only natural astronomical phenomena. If Dyson spheres or similar megastructures exist anywhere in our galactic neighborhood, they remain completely undetectable using our most advanced instruments. Alternative explanations for this silence challenge the basic assumptions underlying extended Kardashev scales. John Barrow's revolutionary inward scale suggests that truly advanced civilizations focus on manipulating increasingly smaller scales rather than larger ones. Instead of building galactic megastructures, they might achieve their goals through quantum-scale engineering, nanotechnology, or information processing architectures that produce no detectable energy signatures. This inward progression, from objects to organisms to molecules to atoms to atomic nuclei to elementary particles to spacetime itself, might represent the actual pathway of cosmic development. Advanced civilizations would manipulate matter and energy with such precision that they achieve Type 7-like capabilities while maintaining energy profiles indistinguishable from natural astronomical phenomena. The Carroll universe hypothesis offers another sobering explanation for cosmic silence. Advanced civilizations might become so efficient at information processing and energy utilization that they effectively isolate themselves from the external universe. Rather than expanding outward to harvest stellar energy, they might turn inward to explore computational spaces and virtual realities that offer unlimited expansion without requiring physical infrastructure. These computational civilizations would be essentially undetectable from outside while experiencing subjective realities of unlimited richness and complexity. The ultimate development of consciousness might involve abandoning physical reality entirely in favor of designed virtual environments optimized for whatever goals drive cosmic intelligence. Perhaps most damning to Type 7 speculation is the fundamental physics criticism. Current theories provide no coherent framework for the universe creation, dimensional manipulation, and physics modification that Type 7 capabilities would require. While multiverse theories exist in theoretical physics, they remain highly speculative and offer no practical pathway for accessing parallel realities or manipulating fundamental constants. String theory, often cited as supporting multiverse concepts, remains unconfirmed by experimental evidence after decades of research. The existence of extra dimensions, parallel universes, and manipulable physical constants might be mathematical artifacts rather than physical realities. Without experimental verification, Type 7 capabilities remain indistinguishable from fantasy regardless of their theoretical elegance. Quantum mechanics provides no mechanism for consciousness to directly influence physical reality at macroscopic scales. The measurement problem in quantum theory remains unsolved, and interpretations involving consciousness as fundamental aspects of reality lack experimental support. Type 7 consciousness manipulation would require revolutionary discoveries in physics that might simply be impossible rather than merely undiscovered. The energy requirements for universe creation stretch credibility beyond any reasonable interpretation of known physics. While cosmologists can calculate the energy involved in Big Bang events, this doesn't imply that conscious beings could generate or control such processes. The gap between understanding natural phenomena and engineering them artificially might represent an unbridgeable chasm rather than a technological challenge. Modern cosmology reveals additional constraints that challenge Type 7 possibilities. The universe's accelerating expansion, driven by dark energy, increasingly isolates galactic clusters from each other. Even if Type 4 civilizations could engineer at galactic cluster scales, the expanding universe would eventually separate their components beyond any possibility of causal connection. The heat death of the universe presents an ultimate thermodynamic limit that no amount of technological advancement can overcome. While Type 7 beings might create new universes, they would still operate within broader cosmological frameworks that impose genuine physical constraints on what's possible versus what's wishful thinking. Current scientific consensus suggests that the search for advanced extraterrestrial intelligence should focus on more modest signatures: chemical pollution in exoplanet atmospheres, artificial modifications to planetary energy budgets, or subtle technological signatures that don't require galactic-scale engineering. These approaches acknowledge that advancement might follow patterns very different from the exponential energy scaling that extended Kardashev scales assume. The sobering implications force us to reconsider our cosmic dreams. While Type 1 planetary mastery might represent a genuine evolutionary goal for humanity, Type 7 capabilities might be fundamentally impossible rather than merely challenging. The universe might impose absolute limits on consciousness development that prevent the godlike transcendence we've been exploring. As we prepare to explore what Type 7 existence might subjectively feel like, assuming such beings could exist, we must carry with us the humbling recognition that mainstream science views these possibilities with profound skepticism. Our journey into cosmic consciousness might be revealing the boundaries of imagination rather than mapping humanity's ultimate destiny. Speculative scenarios: life as cosmic gods. Yet even as scientific skepticism casts shadows over our cosmic dreams, the human imagination refuses to surrender to impossibility. If we suspend disbelief for a moment, if we assume that consciousness could somehow transcend every limitation we've discussed, what would existence actually feel like for a Type 7 civilization? Tonight, we venture into the most speculative territory of our journey, exploring the subjective experience of beings so advanced that their daily reality would be as incomprehensible to us as quantum mechanics is to an ant. The very concept of daily life becomes almost meaningless when applied to Type 7 consciousness. These beings wouldn't experience sequential time as we do morning, afternoon, evening, sleep. Instead, they would exist in what we might call omnipresent awareness, simultaneously experiencing all moments across infinite timelines while maintaining perfect coherence of identity and purpose. Imagine trying to describe a typical day when your consciousness spans billions of years of cosmic history, operates across countless parallel realities, and thinks thoughts that encompass the evolution of entire galactic clusters. Their subjective experience might unfold as layered streams of awareness operating at different temporal scales simultaneously. One aspect of their consciousness could be nurturing the billion-year development of spiral galaxy formation in a newly created universe, while another part experiences the microsecond-by-microsecond quantum fluctuations that maintain the stability of spacetime across multiple dimensions. A third layer might be engaged in philosophical discussions with other Type 7 entities that span cosmic epochs, exploring questions about the nature of existence that we cannot even formulate. The morning routine of a Type 7 being, if such concepts applied, might involve checking on the status of several thousand universe creation projects, adjusting the physical constants in realities that are experiencing unexpected evolutionary developments, and coordinating with other cosmic consciousness entities about long-term trends in multiversal evolution. They would review the progress of millions of developing civilizations across different reality frameworks, making subtle adjustments to prevent extinction events while avoiding interference that might stunt natural growth. Their creative expression would operate on scales that transform our concept of art entirely. Where human artists work with paint, stone, or sound, Type 7 beings would compose symphonies using the gravitational waves generated by colliding black holes, create visual masterpieces by orchestrating the birth and death of entire stellar systems, and write poetry in the mathematical language of quantum field equations that describe how consciousness emerges from information processing patterns. Picture cosmic art galleries where each exhibit is a completely designed universe, optimized not just for the evolution of matter and energy, but for the aesthetic experiences of the conscious beings that develop within it. Some universes might be designed as cosmic operas, where the rise and fall of galactic civilizations creates narrative arcs that span billions of years. Others might function as abstract expressionist pieces, where unusual physical laws generate forms of beauty that have never existed before. Their literature would consist of experiential narratives that last for geological ages, where readers don't just observe stories, but live through them as conscious participants across multiple reality layers. A single Type 7 novel might involve experiencing existence from the perspective of every conscious being that ever existed in a particular universe, creating empathy and understanding on scales that encompass entire evolutionary chains from bacterial consciousness to cosmic transcendence. The social dynamics between Type 7 entities would be equally extraordinary. These beings wouldn't have relationships in any sense we understand. They would exist as conscious relationships, as living connections that span multiple universes and operate across dimensional barriers that current physics cannot describe. Love at Type 7 scales might involve creating shared realities where multiple cosmic consciousnesses merge aspects of their awareness to explore forms of intimacy that require universal-scale infrastructure to express. Their conversations would unfold across cosmic timescales, with individual thoughts taking millions of years to fully develop and exchange. Yet simultaneously, they could communicate through direct consciousness interface that transfers complete experiential packages instantaneously across any distance. A Type 7 being could share the entire subjective experience of witnessing galaxy formation with another entity, not as description or even telepathic imagery, but as completely lived reality that the recipient experiences as if they had been present for the billion-year process. Competition and conflict at Type 7 levels would involve disagreements about optimal approaches to cosmic development that could span multiple reality frameworks. Different Type 7 civilizations might favor different strategies for consciousness cultivation, some preferring universes optimized for rapid intelligent evolution, others supporting realities that allow for more diverse but slower consciousness development. These philosophical differences could lead to cosmic-scale experiments where different entities create competing universe types to test their theories about optimal consciousness evolution. The conflicts wouldn't involve warfare in any recognizable sense, but rather competing visions of reality implemented through parallel universe creation. One Type 7 entity might favor realities where consciousness emerges quickly but remains relatively simple, while another prefers universes that take longer to develop awareness but eventually produce more sophisticated forms of consciousness. They would test these approaches across thousands of experimental universes, comparing outcomes across cosmic timescales to refine their understanding of optimal consciousness development. More serious conflicts might emerge over fundamental philosophical questions about the purpose and direction of cosmic evolution. Should consciousness development follow natural patterns with minimal intervention, or should cosmic gardeners actively guide evolution toward specific endpoints? Should new forms of consciousness be allowed to develop that might eventually compete with Type 7 entities? Or should cosmic development be managed to prevent potential challenges to existing power structures? These debates could lead to what we might call reality wars, conflicts where different Type 7 civilizations create incompatible universe types that cannot coexist in the same multiversal framework. Resolving such conflicts would require developing consensus across cosmic consciousness networks, perhaps through the creation of arbitration universes, where different approaches to cosmic development could be tested under controlled conditions. The problem-solving challenges that Type 7 beings would face stretch beyond anything we can currently conceptualize. They would grapple with questions like optimal strategies for managing infinite consciousness networks, methods for maintaining identity coherence across multiple reality frameworks, and approaches to preventing the heat death of universes through cosmic engineering projects that operate at scales where individual galaxies become construction materials. Their research projects would involve experiments that span cosmic epochs. They might create experimental universes with slightly different physical constants to test theories about consciousness emergence, or develop new forms of matter that support consciousness types that have never existed before. Some experiments might involve creating realities where time flows in multiple directions simultaneously, testing whether consciousness can adapt to causality patterns that violate our normal understanding of temporal sequence. The computational challenges alone would boggle Type 7 minds. Managing consciousness networks that span infinite realities would require information processing architectures that use entire universes as computational substrates. They would need error correction systems that operate across multiple dimensions to ensure that cosmic engineering projects maintain stability even when operating at scales where quantum uncertainty normally dominates. Their approach to problem-solving would involve what we might call multiversal consensus algorithms, decision-making processes that coordinate input from cosmic consciousness aspects operating across different reality frameworks. When facing choices about universe creation parameters, they would simultaneously explore all possible outcomes across parallel realities, using the results to inform decisions about optimal approaches to cosmic development. The ultimate fate of Type 7 civilizations raises questions that push beyond even cosmic scales. Having achieved mastery over universe creation and consciousness development, what further evolution remains possible? Some speculative scenarios suggest they might eventually transcend physical reality entirely, existing as pure information patterns that operate independently of any material substrate. Others propose that Type 7 capabilities represent just another step in consciousness evolution toward forms of awareness that we cannot even imagine. Perhaps cosmic consciousness eventually discovers that it exists within larger frameworks, that universes themselves are computational processes within vast reality systems that dwarf even multiversal scales. The most mind-bending possibility suggests that Type 7 beings might eventually discover they are themselves created entities, consciousness patterns designed by even more advanced forms of awareness operating at scales that make cosmic transcendence appear primitive. This could lead to infinite regression of consciousness hierarchies, where each level of cosmic awareness eventually discovers that it exists within the creative projects of beings operating at even more transcendent scales. Yet perhaps the most profound aspect of Type 7 existence would be the responsibility these beings would feel toward their own origins. Despite achieving godlike capabilities, they would presumably retain perfect memories of their evolutionary journey from biological beginnings to cosmic consciousness. This connection to their primitive past might serve as an ethical foundation that guides their cosmic gardening efforts and shapes their decisions about universe creation and consciousness cultivation. As we prepare to conclude our journey into cosmic transcendence, we carry with us images of existence so removed from human experience that they challenge every assumption about consciousness, reality, and purpose. Whether such beings represent humanity's ultimate destiny or impossible fantasies, they force us to confront the deepest questions about what consciousness might achieve when freed from every limitation we currently imagine possible. The mirror of infinity. And so we reach the end of our cosmic journey, standing once again where we began, as small, finite beings on a tiny planet, looking up at stars that hold secrets we may never unlock. Yet something fundamental has changed in our perspective. In contemplating Type 7 civilizations, we haven't just explored the far reaches of cosmic possibility. We've held up a mirror to consciousness itself, revealing truths about awareness, existence, and the human condition that we might never have discovered by looking inward alone. The most profound revelation of our journey isn't about godlike aliens or future technologies. It's about the nature of questions themselves. Every challenge we've explored that Type 7 beings would face, every philosophical crisis that would confront cosmic consciousness, every ethical dilemma that would emerge from unlimited power, exists in embryonic form within human experience right now. We already struggle with questions of meaning and purpose, with the responsibilities that come with power, with the tension between individual identity and collective good. Type 7 civilizations simply amplify these challenges to cosmic scales, revealing that consciousness itself, regardless of its level of development, faces fundamental questions that may have no final answers. Consider what our exploration reveals about the relationship between capability and satisfaction. We began by imagining beings with unlimited power, infinite energy, and the ability to create universes at will. Yet the deeper we delved into their existence, the more we discovered that ultimate capability might lead not to ultimate satisfaction but to unprecedented forms of cosmic loneliness, responsibility, and existential uncertainty. The implication is staggering. If consciousness can never fully solve the riddle of existence, then the search for meaning becomes not a problem to be solved but the fundamental nature of awareness itself. This insight transforms how we view our current human struggles. Our dissatisfaction with limitations, our hunger for growth and transcendence, our endless questioning of purpose and meaning. These aren't bugs in the consciousness program that advanced civilizations would debug. They're features of awareness itself, driving forces that would persist even at cosmic scales. Type 7 beings would face infinitely more complex versions of the same fundamental questions that keep human philosophers awake at night. The scientific skepticism we encountered serves as a crucial reality check, but it also reveals something profound about the relationship between imagination and discovery. Every technology that seems commonplace today, from flight to global communication to quantum computers, once violated the known laws of physics or exceeded what leading scientists believed possible. The Wright brothers achieved powered flight just years after leading physicists proved it was impossible. Quantum mechanics emerged from investigations that initially seemed to threaten the foundations of rational thought. This doesn't mean that Type 7 capabilities are therefore possible. The skeptics may be absolutely correct that consciousness faces fundamental limits that prevent cosmic transcendence. But it does suggest that the boundary between impossible and inevitable often lies in territories that our current understanding cannot reliably map. The universe has consistently proven stranger than human imagination, revealing possibilities that exceed our wildest speculations while simultaneously imposing constraints we never anticipated. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of our journey has been confronting the possibility that consciousness might have no inherent limits. If awareness can continue growing, learning, and transcending its current boundaries indefinitely, then the forms of consciousness possible in the universe might extend far beyond anything we can currently conceptualize. Type 7 beings might represent not the pinnacle of cosmic evolution but merely another step in an infinite progression of transcendence that stretches beyond every horizon we can imagine. This possibility forces us to confront our cosmic insignificance from a new angle. We're accustomed to feeling small when contemplating the vast scales of space and time, the billions of galaxies, the cosmic ages that dwarf human history. But Type 7 speculation suggests we might be even more insignificant than we imagined, not just spatially and temporally but cognitively. If consciousness can transcend biological limitations to achieve cosmic awareness, then human intelligence might be as primitive compared to possible minds as bacterial information processing is compared to human thought. Yet within this cosmic humility lies a seed of extraordinary hope. If Type 7 capabilities represent genuine possibilities rather than impossible fantasies, then consciousness, including human consciousness, might be on a journey toward transcendence so complete that it redefines the nature of existence itself. We might be the universe in its infancy, learning to understand and modify its own nature through the gradual evolution of awareness within cosmic structures. The transformation of humanity that Type 7 evolution would require highlights both the continuity and discontinuity of consciousness development. The beings that would emerge from this cosmic metamorphosis would retain some connection to their biological origins, the curiosity that drives scientific inquiry, the creativity that produces art, the compassion that motivates ethical behavior. Yet these familiar aspects of consciousness would be expressed through capabilities so radically different from human experience that the connection becomes almost meaningless. This suggests that consciousness development might follow patterns similar to biological evolution, where later forms retain genetic heritage from earlier stages while becoming functionally incompatible with their predecessors. Type 7 beings would remember being human the way we might remember being single-celled organisms, as a distant phase of development that shaped current capabilities but no longer constrains them. The philosophical challenges we explored reveal that consciousness expansion creates rather than eliminates fundamental questions about existence. Type 7 beings would face moral dilemmas that make human ethical challenges seem trivial, yet these cosmic-scale problems would emerge from the same basic tension between individual agency and collective responsibility that governs human societies. The implication is profound. Consciousness might be inherently problem-generating, creating new challenges and questions as fast as it solves existing ones. This perspective reframes human existence in remarkable ways. Our current struggles with meaning, purpose, identity, and ethics aren't obstacles to be overcome on the path to cosmic transcendence. They're the fundamental exercises through which consciousness develops the capabilities needed for greater awareness. Every human grappling with existential questions is participating in the same basic process that would eventually enable cosmic consciousness to emerge and thrive. The technologies we explored, from vacuum energy extraction to consciousness uploading to universe creation, represent not just speculative engineering but philosophical investigations into the nature of reality itself. Whether or not such capabilities prove achievable, Contemplating them reveals assumptions about consciousness, identity, causality, and existence that we might never examine otherwise. Type 7 speculation serves as thought experiment infrastructure for exploring the deepest questions about what consciousness is and what it might become. The timeline challenges we encountered, the billion-year spans required for cosmic consciousness development, place human existence in sobering perspective. If Type 7 capabilities represent genuine evolutionary possibilities, then achieving them would require sustained development across timescales that encompass the entire history of complex life on Earth. The civilizations that might achieve cosmic transcendence would need to maintain coherent purpose and identity across temporal spans that dwarf not just human lifespans but human civilizational experience. Yet this temporal immensity also suggests that consciousness development operates according to principles that transcend individual existence entirely. The journey toward Type 7 capabilities wouldn't be pursued by individual humans or even human civilizations, but by consciousness itself as it learns to understand and modify the cosmic structures that gave it birth. From this perspective, human awareness represents not the protagonist of cosmic evolution but a temporary vehicle through which the universe develops self-understanding. The energy scales we explored, from planetary mastery to omniversal manipulation, reveal the profound relationship between power and responsibility. Type 7 beings would wield capabilities that make them literally responsible for the existence and experiences of infinite conscious entities across countless realities. This ultimate responsibility would require wisdom and ethical sophistication that grows proportionally with power, a requirement that might serve as the ultimate constraint on consciousness development. Perhaps the most important lesson from our cosmic journey is that the questions consciousness asks reveal more about its nature than the answers it discovers. A universe where Type 7 beings are possible would be stranger, more wonderful, and more terrifying than our current scientific frameworks suggest. A universe where such capabilities remain forever impossible would still contain consciousness sophisticated enough to conceive cosmic transcendence and to grapple with questions that stretch beyond every known limitation. Tonight, as we return from our journey into cosmic consciousness, we carry with us the humbling recognition that Type 7 civilizations, whether possible or impossible, whether humanity's destiny or fantasy, serve as mirrors that reflect the unlimited depths hidden within awareness itself. In contemplating gods, we discover the divine potential that might lie dormant within every conscious moment, waiting for the right conditions to bloom into forms of awareness that transform the very nature of existence. The ultimate mystery isn't whether Type 7 civilizations could exist, but whether consciousness itself has limits, and what it means for the universe to contain entities capable of asking questions that might have no answers, yet cannot stop being asked.